New York City Mayor Zohran Mamdani has encountered renewed scrutiny regarding his recent statements about a $104 million increase in tips for delivery workers. This sum, which Mamdani has publicly highlighted, is attributed by observers to legislative changes enacted prior to the commencement of his mayoral term. Critics assert that the legislation responsible for these outcomes was established under the previous administration, and contend that increased tipping requirements may further contribute to the already elevated cost of living in the city. At a recent press conference and via social media, Mayor Mamdani attributed the increase in delivery worker tips to modifications in the tipping mechanisms of platforms such as Uber Eats and DoorDash. These companies made tipping more prominent in compliance with city law. Mamdani emphasized his administration's commitment to workers' rights, stating, "We've put $104 million back in delivery workers' pockets," and suggesting this represents initial progress in a broader agenda. However, the regulatory changes referenced were, in fact, legislated by the New York City Council before Mamdani assumed office. Notably, former Mayor Eric Adams did not sign or veto the measure. It became effective by default after 30 days, with implementation and enforcement falling to the current administration beginning in January. Prior to the law's enactment, the New York City Department of Consumer and Worker Protection had documented a 79% drop in tips for delivery workers, a consequence of low default tip settings and less prominent tipping mechanisms within food delivery apps. The updated legislation required these companies to make tipping options more visible. A modification city officials claim has generated an increase of $104 million in worker tips. Mamdani's office has maintained that while the groundwork for these reforms was laid before his tenure, their administration executed the implementation and active enforcement of the law. A spokesperson articulated, "A law is only as good as its implementation. We have been intentional about enforcing the laws on the books so that we are putting money back into the pockets of working New Yorkers." Nonetheless, critics from across the political spectrum have raised concerns regarding both the substance of the policy and the nature of Mamdani's claims. Various commentators note that the higher default tip structure, mandated by city legislation, may impose additional financial burdens on consumers, thus exacerbating the cost of goods and services in New York City. Detractors argue that while the intent is to improve worker compensation, the resultant effect may be increased prices for consumers, potentially leading to a situation in which residents face substantial new costs for common services such as food delivery. Some observers further contend that these cost increases are compounded by other recently introduced municipal policies, including minimum wage regulations for delivery workers and additional labor protections. Critics assert that these measures, while benefiting workers, may result in consumers effectively double paying, confronting both elevated base costs and higher tipping expectations. In summary, Mayor Mamdani's highlighting of increased delivery worker tips as an achievement of his administration continues to generate debate about legislative credit, policy outcomes, and the broader economic impact on New York City residents. Want to make sure you never miss our latest videos? Tap that follow button right now. If our content brought a smile to your face, made you think, or taught you something new, please like this video and share with your friends and family. Your support helps our community grow, and sharing the love only takes a second. Thank you for watching and being part of our journey.